Okay, so you've given us an absolutely incredible stack of material to dig into for this deep dive.
Really fascinating stuff.
Yeah, and we're really going to tackle something that I think is absolutely essential for anyone who's trying to get their message out there in the world.
Makes sense?
It's really all about how to make your marketing connect.
At the end of the day, it's all about that connection.
Exactly, and we're going to really zero in on the power of clarity and communication in this sort of maybe counterintuitive idea of tapping into what your customers want to avoid, and how this framework called the StoryBrand SB7 framework can be just a totally powerful tool.
I love that you called it counterintuitive, because it really is, right? Like, you wouldn't think about that necessarily at first glance.
Totally. And our mission today is pretty simple. We just want to pull out the immediately useful stuff from all this material so you can really grasp what drives effective marketing.
I like it. Straight to the point.
All right, so let's jump right in.
Let's do it.
So one of the things that really jumped out at me from your stack was this idea of negative stakes.
Yeah.
And, our kind of like knee-jerk reaction in marketing is always to shout about all the amazing things our product or service does.
Right. Yeah.
But what your sources suggest is that there's maybe a deeper lever we can pull here.
Totally. And it's interesting how effective it can be to highlight those potential downsides.
Yeah.
Like what could go wrong if they don't choose you. It really taps into this primal human desire to avoid loss and failure.
Right.
Think about any great story, what keeps you on the edge of your seat. It's the threat of what the hero might lose, right?
Absolutely.
And your sources emphasize that it's the exact same thing in marketing if you don't make it clear what a customer risks missing out on, or, even what kind of bad situation they might end up in.
Right.
There's no real compelling why for them to choose you.
It's like you're not really giving them a reason to care.
Exactly. They don't see the consequences.
Yeah, and one of your sources put it so beautifully. I think it was in one of the articles you sent where it said that every human being is trying to avoid a tragic ending to their story.
Oh, that's good.
Right, and when your marketing clearly shows the negative consequences of not choosing your brand, it speaks directly to that very primal human drive to avoid those things.
It reminds me of...
It's not about being all doom and gloom.
Yeah.
But it's more about sort of like shining a light on what they might already be trying to prevent in their own lives.
It's interesting. We can actually tie this back to something like Kahneman's prospect theory in behavioral economics. Have you ever heard of that?
Yeah, vaguely.
So basically it shows that we as humans, we feel the pain of a loss way more strongly than we feel the pleasure of an equivalent gain.
Interesting.
So just to give you a really simple example, losing $10, it feels way worse psychologically than gaining $10 feels good.
Makes sense.
So when you think about it like that, when you frame your marketing message around what your customers could potentially lose.
Oh, I see where you're going, right?
Whether that's time, money, opportunities, or even, just a feeling of peace of mind, it can be a really powerful motivator.
So it's about creating that contrast then, right?
Exactly. You're defining the bad outcome to make the good outcome that your brand offers seem even more desirable.
I like it.
I bet you can think of tons of examples of this. Like, think of those Allstate Mayhem commercials.
Oh, yeah.
They paint these like crazy, over-the-top, disastrous scenarios.
Totally.
And it really hammers home the message that you need insurance.
Right, like you don't want that to happen to you.
Exactly. And one of your notes actually sums it up perfectly. It says, the darker the potential negative outcome, the brighter the positive solution appears.
That's such a good way to think about it.
It is, right?
Yeah.
And this whole idea of using potential downsides to create that contrast, it leads us to something called the fear appeal process.
Okay, I've heard of that.
Yeah. Have you used that in your marketing before?
I don't know, maybe subconsciously I feel like I'm getting a better understanding of it now.
Right, so your notes actually break it down into a few key steps. So first, you want to make the customer aware that, hey, they could be vulnerable to this problem.
Right, make them realize they're not immune.
Exactly. Then you highlight that they really need to take some kind of action to protect themselves.
Okay.
Then you come in and you position your brand as the specific solution they need.
Like the hero riding in to save the day.
Sort of, but remember, we want the customer to be the hero.
Right, of course.
You're the guide.
The guide.
Exactly, and then finally you give them that clear call to action.
Okay.
So it's a very logical flow. You point out the danger, and then you show them how to avoid it.
So it's not just enough to just highlight the negative.
No, you have to give them that path forward.
You have to make it clear how your brand is the answer.
Exactly. And the key takeaway here is that by clearly defining those problems your customers are already trying to avoid your marketing becomes so much more relevant.
Yeah, it just clicks, right?
It clicks because it's speaking directly to what's already on their mind.
It's less about, creating some kind of fantasy and more about preventing a reality they really don't want.
Right, and that brings up an interesting question.
Okay.
We've been talking about how effective it can be to highlight those potential negatives.
Right.
But what happens when your message just isn't clear in the first place?
Yeah, that's a good point.
Your sources are pretty adamant about this. Unclear messaging can be seriously damaging for businesses.
Oh, absolutely.
Your notes actually say that businesses with unclear messaging waste enormous amounts of money on marketing efforts that yield no results.
Yeah, it's like you could have the most amazing product in the world.
Right.
But if you explain it poorly,
no one's going to buy it.
No one's going to understand why they need it.
I love that analogy by Donald Miller about, holding a bullhorn up to a monkey.
Oh, yeah, I've heard that one.
All that effort and noise, but no real communication.
Yeah, it's so true.
And from a psychological standpoint, it's fascinating what happens in the brain when it encounters information that's just unclear.
Right, our brains don't like to work too hard.
They really don't. Your notes actually say that the brain avoids burning too many calories, trying to figure out something that's confusing.
Like it's a survival mechanism almost.
It is. Our brains are wired to filter out information that requires too much mental effort.
So it's kind of simple.
And that's where that StoryBrand mantra comes in. If you confuse, you'll lose.
So true, and it happens so fast.
It really does.
Our sources talk about this thing called the grunt test.
Yes.
And it's basically if a potential customer can't figure out what you offer and how it can help them within like the first 5 seconds.
They're gone.
They're gone.
I moved on.
They moved on to the next thing.
Exactly.
So they need to be able to almost instinctively answer these 3 key questions.
So what are they?
What do you offer? How will it make my life better? And what do I need to do to get it?
You got it.
If they can't immediately grunt out those answers, you've probably lost them.
Yeah, it's almost like a caveman test.
Well,
like, can they understand it at the most basic level?
Totally. And what's kind of crazy is that you could have a product that's objectively better than your competitors.
I see where you're going with this.
But if your messaging is unclear, you could actually lose out to them.
Because people tend to buy what they understand the fastest.
Exactly.
So unclear messaging, it's almost like you're hiding your value.
Like you're putting up a barrier.
Exactly. You're making it hard for potential customers to choose you over someone who's just communicating more clearly.
One of the things that really drove this point home for me in your sources was that example of the industrial painting company.
Oh yeah, what was their name?
I don't think they mentioned the name, but they were a StoryBrand client. And apparently their website was just like overloaded with all this technical jargon.
Oh, I hate that.
Right. But when they simplified their core message to something like super blunt and clear.
What was it?
It was, we paint all kinds of S-sharp %.
No way.
Yeah, I know, right?
That's amazing.
It's so simple.
And it worked.
And they saw a huge increase in engagement.
Wow, that just shows you the power of cutting through the complexity.
Totally.
And it's not just about those immediate sales conversions either.
Right.
Unclear messaging, it can really make it difficult to build a strong brand.
Because your brand is your message, right?
In a lot of ways, yeah. Branding is about creating simple, relevant, repeatable messages that actually stick in people's minds.
Right.
So if your fundamental message is fuzzy and hard to understand, it's just not going to be memorable.
And no one's going to remember it.
Exactly. Your notes sum it up nicely. Nobody remembers a company that makes noise.
So true.
And something else to think about here is that unclear external messaging.
Oh, this is interesting.
It often reflects a lack of clarity internally.
Oh, yeah, within the company itself.
Exactly. Like if your own team members can't clearly explain how your company helps customers solve their problems and achieve their goals.
That's a red flag.
It is, because that internal misalignment, it's going to show up in how you communicate with the outside world.
Yeah, that makes total sense.
And then on the customer side, when the steps to actually engage with your brand are unclear.
Like how to buy something or sign up for something.
Exactly. It creates hesitation and this thing called cognitive dissonance.
Oh, I've heard of that.
Yeah, it's that feeling of discomfort when things don't quite align.
Like when you're trying to figure out a website and you just can't.
Exactly, or you're not sure what to do next, or the process seems too complicated.
Right. Even if you're interested, you might just give up.
Yeah, it's like, you're really excited to try that new restaurant, but you have no idea how to make a reservation.
Totally. And then all that leads to the bigger problem of, your entire marketing campaign just falling flat.
Right. If your foundational message is muddled, any slogans or taglines you use are just going to amplify that confusion.
Right.
They won't actually stick in people's minds.
It's like you're building a house on a shaky foundation.
Exactly.
All right, so we've talked about all the downsides of unclear messaging.
All the scary stuff.
All right, all the things we want to avoid. So let's shift gears and talk about the positive stuff.
Yes. Let's bring in some sunshine.
The benefits of clarity.
I'm excited about this part.
Right, so your notes really highlight that clarity immediately boosts your visibility.
Because it cuts through the noise.
Exactly. In today's world, we're just bombarded with information from every direction.
It's overwhelming.
It is, and a clear, concise message can really help you cut through all that.
It's like a breath of fresh air.
And what's really fascinating is that clarity actually aligns with how our brains are wired.
Oh, tell me more about this.
So our brains naturally prefer simplicity and predictability.
It makes sense we want things to be easy.
Exactly. So when your message is clear and easy to understand, it requires less mental effort to process.
So it's less work for our brains.
Right, and it goes back to that grunt test we talked about earlier.
Can you remind me what that is again?
Yeah, so it's that idea that you have to make your offer instantly understandable.
Got it.
Like within those first few seconds.
Right.
And this ease of understanding it directly translates into more effective marketing and less wasted money.
Because your message is actually getting through.
Exactly. You're not throwing spaghetti at the wall and seeing what sticks.
Love that analogy.
One of the things that you quoted in your notes was Seth Godin.
Oh, yeah. He's brilliant.
He is. And he talks about the importance of changing how you talk about your work.
Right. Because it's not just about what you do, it's about how you communicate it.
Exactly.
And there's also that great example you included about Amy Porterfield.
Oh, yeah. She's a marketing guru.
She is. And she saw incredible conversion rates after she started using StoryBrand principles.
Yeah. She called them unheard of.
That's amazing.
So clear messaging, it leads to better websites, emails that people actually open, and ads that grab attention for the right reasons.
You're getting a better return on your investment.
Exactly.
I love it.
And it's not just about making more money.
Right.
Clarity also improves customer engagement and their willingness to actually respond to your marketing.
Because they actually understand what you're saying.
Exactly. And they understand how it benefits them.
Right. It's not just about you, it's about them.
Totally. And when people clearly get it, they're way more likely to pay attention and take action.
Yes. You actually quoted Ryan Dice in your notes.
Oh, yeah. He's another marketing expert.
He is. And he said that StoryBrand helps create sales messages that people listen and respond to.
So good.
And then going even deeper than that, clarity really strengthens their value proposition.
Right, because it makes it crystal clear what you're offering and the specific benefits people will get.
It takes the guesswork out of it.
Exactly. Customers understand exactly how you're going to solve their problems.
Your notes mention Ken Blanchard and how he saw fantastic results after clarifying the messaging on his company's website.
It's a great example of how powerful it can be.
It really is. And going beyond that kind of intellectual understanding of your offer,
Right?
clarity can also build trust and a real connection with your audience.
This is so important.
It is, because when you clearly communicate that, you understand their challenges and you do it in an empathetic way.
People feel seen.
They do. They feel like you get them.
And that makes them more likely to trust you.
Exactly. And speaking of trust, Bill Haslam.
Who's he?
He's a former governor.
Okay.
And he actually emphasized empathy as a core element of good messaging.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's all about connecting with people on that human level.
So then let's talk about the bottom line.
The thing every business cares about.
Revenue.
Yes, clarity drives revenue growth and sales.
Absolutely. Your notes are full of examples of companies who saw huge increases after clarifying their message.
What kind of increases are we talking about?
Like doubling, tripling, even quadrupling their revenue.
Wow.
Yeah, it's amazing. And there's that example you included of Kyle Schultz.
Oh, right. He saw a huge jump in sales.
Yeah, it just goes to show you the real world impact of clear communication.
And I love that you brought up the internal benefits too, because clarity fosters internal alignment as well.
Yeah, when everyone on your team understands and can articulate your core offering and how it helps customers.
It creates a shared sense of purpose.
And it makes everything run more smoothly.
Right. It's like everyone's rowing in the same direction.
Exactly. And we can't forget about the power of word of mouth marketing.
Oh, that's huge.
It is. And When your message is clear and easy to grasp, your satisfied customers are basically equipped with the exact words to use when they talk about your brand.
So they become your advocates.
Exactly.
It's free marketing.
And it's the best kind of marketing.
It really is, because it's coming from a trusted source.
This is interesting.
What is it?
Your notes mention that clarity can even help you justify charging higher prices.
That's right, because by clearly articulating those deeper internal problems you're solving for your customers,
Right.
you're increasing the perceived value of what you offer.
So you can actually charge a premium.
Exactly.
And then from a purely practical standpoint, clarity allows you to be way more efficient with your resources. You're focusing your marketing efforts and your budget on what actually resonates with your audience.
You're not wasting time and money on things that aren't working. It's all about being strategic.
And then finally, having that clear, consistent message, it really contributes to a much stronger brand identity.
Oh yeah, think about Apple.
Under Steve Jobs.
Yes, with their Think Different campaign.
That was such a concise, powerful message.
And it came to define the whole brand.
Exactly. So it all comes back to making things easier for the customer.
Right.
Clarity reduces their hesitation and any potential confusion.
Because you're providing a clear plan and call to action.
You're minimizing that cognitive dissonance.
That discomfort we talked about.
And it makes it way easier for them to say yes to what you're offering.
So how do we actually achieve this clarity?
Right. That's the million-dollar question.
It is, and your sources point to a really effective framework.
Okay, what is it?
It's called the StoryBrand SB7 framework.
I've heard of this.
Yeah, it's outlined in detail in Donald Miller's book, Building a Story Brand.
I've heard good things about that book.
It's a great book, and it basically takes those fundamental principles of storytelling and applies them to your brand messaging.
Interesting. So how does it work?
Well, it's called SB7 because it's built around 7 key elements.
Okay.
And it's crucial to remember that each element is viewed through the lens of your customer.
Not your brand.
Exactly. You're putting yourself in their shoes.
And these 7 elements together, they create a kind of mental roadmap.
That helps customers engage with your message.
Okay, let's break it down.
All right. So the first element is a character.
Okay.
And the foundational idea here is that your customer is the hero of the story you're telling.
Not your brand.
Exactly. Every good story has a central character who wants something.
Right.
So your marketing needs to pinpoint what your customer desires.
In relation to your product or service.
Exactly. And this creates what's often called a story gap that pulls them in.
Like a cliffhanger.
Kind of. It's that element of intrigue.
And you really want to boil this down to a single core desire.
That even connects to their basic needs for survival.
Like safety, health, connection.
Exactly. Things like that.
That makes sense.
And one of the best examples of this comes from your notes.
Yeah, is it?
Remember that kids love aquariums example?
Oh, yeah. What was it?
So Spectrum Brands, they make those glowfish.
Oh, yeah. The fluorescent fish?
Yes. And they saw a huge increase in sales just by adding those 3 words, kids love aquariums, to their product descriptions.
Interesting.
Because it tapped directly into that parental desire to, build strong family bonds and nurture their kids.
It created that emotional connection.
Exactly.
Okay, so the second element then
has a problem.
Okay.
And this goes back to the idea that people don't really buy products or services, they buy solutions to their problems.
Right, we've all heard that before.
It's true though. So your marketing needs to clearly identify the problems your customers face.
Not just the obvious external stuff.
No, but also those deeper internal frustrations and even their philosophical beliefs about how things should be.
Like their values and their worldview.
Exactly. Your notes actually say that customers are often more motivated by those internal emotional frustrations.
Makes sense.
Like, think about it. If you're selling a weight loss program,
okay,
it's not just about the physical weight. It's about the emotional baggage that comes with it.
Right, like feeling self-conscious or insecure.
Exactly. And another important part of this element is introducing a villain.
Like a bad guy.
Yeah, it's basically the root cause of their problem.
So you're giving them something concrete to fight against.
Exactly. It provides a focus for their energy.
Okay, what's the third element then?
It's and meets a guide.
Okay.
And this builds on the idea that customers aren't looking for another hero to save them.
They want a guide.
They want to guide someone who can help them solve their own problem.
And that's where your brand comes in.
Exactly. You position yourself as that empathetic and competent guide.
Someone who understands their struggles and has the expertise to help them succeed.
And your notes really caution against making your brand the hero of the story.
Why is that?
Because it can actually confuse potential customers.
They don't want to be sidelined in their own story.
Exactly. They want to be the main character.
So it's about empowering them.
Exactly. And there's a great example in your notes about CarMax.
Oh, yeah. What do they do?
So they position themselves as the trustworthy guide who takes the fear out of buying a used car.
Right. Because buying a used car can be so stressful.
It can be. You're worried about getting ripped off.
Totally.
But CarMax comes in and says, hey, we've got your back.
We're the guide you need.
Exactly. We'll help you navigate this process.
Okay, I'm liking this framework.
Me too. It's very powerful.
So what's element number 4?
It's who gives them a plan.
Makes sense. A good guide needs a plan.
Exactly. Customers trust a guide who has a clear path forward.
So it's not just about offering vague advice.
No, you need to give them a concrete plan.
Okay, and what does that look like?
It can take a couple of forms.
Okay.
One is called a process plan, and that outlines the simple, easy-to-follow steps to purchase or use your product.
Makes sense.
The other is called an agreement plan,
Okay.
and that clearly states the promises you're making to alleviate their fears and guarantee their success.
So it's about building trust and reducing uncertainty.
Exactly. It helps to minimize that cognitive dissonance we talked about earlier.
Right. Where people feel uncomfortable when things aren't clear.
And your notes highlight CarMax's agreement plan as a good example.
Oh, yeah. What was it again?
So they have things like no haggle pricing and certified quality.
Right. So you know you're getting a fair deal.
Exactly. And even something as simple as the 3-step plan that Luke Skywalker received.
To destroy the Death Star.
Yes. It shows how powerful a clear plan can be.
Even in a galaxy far, far away.
Exactly.
Okay, so what's element number 5?
And calls them to action.
Okay, this one seems pretty straightforward.
It is, but it's also crucial because you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink.
Right.
Your customers need a clear invitation to take the next step.
So you have to tell them exactly what you want them to do.
Exactly. Your marketing needs to include direct calls to action.
What are some examples?
Things like buy now or schedule a demo.
Right. Those are direct and to the point.
Exactly. Those are what we call direct CTAs.
Okay.
But there are also transitional CTAs.
What are those?
Those are things like downloading a free guide or signing up for an email list.
So they're not directly leading to a sale.
Right. They're more about nurturing the relationship and building trust over time.
Okay, I like that.
Yeah, it's a softer approach.
And it's important to avoid being vague.
Absolutely. Your calls to action need to be explicit.
Tell them exactly what to do.
Exactly.
All right, so we're up to element number 6.
Which is that helps them avoid failure.
Okay. This sounds familiar.
It does. It brings us back to the power of negative stakes.
Right, highlighting what they could lose if they don't choose you.
Exactly. You need to clearly articulate those negative consequences.
Because it creates that sense of urgency.
And it taps into loss aversion.
Right, that principle we talked about earlier.
But your notes wisely remind us that this fear appeal shouldn't be overused.
Right, you don't want to scare people away.
And it should always be paired with a clear solution.
Which is your brand.
Of course.
Okay, so we're on to the final element.
Element number 7.
Drumroll, please.
It's and ends in a success.
Okay.
And this is all about painting a clear picture of what success looks like after they engage with your brand.
Don't leave them hanging.
No, you have to show them the happy ending.
And this should address all levels of their problems, right?
Exactly. Not just the external, but also the internal and even the philosophical.
So it's about creating a sense of transformation.
Exactly, like they've reached a new level.
And your notes mention some good examples from movies like Star Wars and The King's Speech.
Oh yeah, where the hero overcomes all the obstacles.
And achieves a desirable outcome.
Exactly. It's satisfying.
It is. And your notes also point out some common mistakes that brands make when trying to apply this storytelling framework.
Oh yeah, what are they?
So the first one is failing to really focus on how their offer helps people survive and thrive.
Right. It has to connect to those fundamental needs.
Exactly. And the second mistake is making their message too complicated.
It's just so they fail the grunt test.
Exactly. People have to be able to understand it quickly and easily.
It's all about clarity.
Okay, so for our listener out there who's ready to put this framework into practice,
Let's get tactical.
what are some practical steps they can take?
So let's go back to that plan element.
Okay.
Your notes emphasize the importance of having both a process plan and an agreement plan.
Right.
And exercise 2.2 in your notes actually offers a helpful template for developing these.
Okay, so they can check that out.
And then those calls to action,
They're crucial.
They are, and it's important to remember the difference between direct CTAs and transitional CTAs.
Right.
And you have some great examples in your notes, like that global shampoo brand that offered a valuable PDF download.
Right.
And the presentation skills company that offered a free webinar.
Those are great examples of transitional CTAs.
Because they're providing value up front.
And building trust.
And your notes also stress the importance of having one clear and obvious direct call to action button on your website.
Don't make people hunt for it.
Exactly.
And another key takeaway is the need to repeat your key sound bites.
Repetition is key for memorability.
You have to say it over and over again.
People need to hear it multiple times before it really sinks in.
All right, so to sum it all up for our listener,
A big picture.
the core message we've pulled from your sources is that clear, customer-centric messaging built on the principles of storytelling.
It's essential for effective marketing.
Absolutely. And always remember that motto, if you confuse, you'll lose.
It's so true.
So to put all this into action, we encourage you to focus on your customer as the hero.
Identify their problems on all three levels, external, internal, philosophical.
Position yourself as the guide.
Provide a clear plan, use compelling calls to action, highlight those negative stakes, and paint a picture of success.
And here are some specific action steps you can take.
Let's hear them.
Number 1, refine your brand script using the SB7 framework.
Love it.
Number 2, explore the StoryBrand.ai tool.
Okay, that's a great resource.
Number 3, integrate your clarified message into your website and all your marketing materials.
Everything needs to be aligned.
And finally, always be testing and iterating your messaging to see what resonates best.
It's a continuous process.
It is.
And here's a final thought for you.
Okay, I like these.
Consider one specific area of your current messaging where you think clarity might be lacking.
Okay.
And ask yourself, what single focused message could you replace it with to better connect with your audience's deepest desires?
Their desires for survival and thriving.
Exactly.
That's a great question to ponder.
It is. It's all about getting to the heart of what really matters.
Well, this has been an absolutely fantastic deep dive.
So much good stuff in here.
Thank you so much for sharing your insightful sources with us.
We really appreciate it.
We hope this tailored exploration has been valuable for you.
And that you've gained some actionable insights.
And we encourage you to think about how you can apply these principles to your own work.
And if you have any other questions or topics you'd like us to explore in future deep dives,
Please don't hesitate to reach out.
we'd love to hear from you.
Thanks again for joining us.
Until next time.